Hello everyone, come back to my channel. The wind rattled the canvas walls of the GP tent as a group of Marines lounged inside, escaping the midday heat. They laughed, traded jokes, and cleaned their gear without much urgency. Just another quiet moment in an endless deployment. That was when the tent flap opened, and an elderly man stepped inside. White hair, steady eyes, a simple blue polo shirt. No uniform, no insignia, no introduction. Just an old man who walked with the kind of confidence no one teaches. Confidence earned somewhere far away, from something much harder than this dusty forward base. One Marine looked up, smirked, and called out, "Sir, are you lost? Or should I ask, what's your rank, Grandpa?" The tent erupted in laughter. But the old man didn't laugh. He just looked at the young Marine, calm, steady, then answered with a reply so powerful, so unexpected, that every voice in that tent fell silent at once. What he said changed everything. For the Marines, for the young man, and even for the old veteran who thought his days of teaching lessons were long over. The GP tent was alive with banter when the old man arrived. Dust clung to his shoes, and the dry air of the base did little to soften his stern expression. No one recognized him. He didn't look like a general visiting the troops. He didn't look like a politician. He certainly didn't look like someone who belonged in a restricted area. To the Marines, he was just an old civilian wandering around a place he didn't belong. The Marine who made the joke, Corporal Hayes, was known as the loud one, the mood maker, the funny guy who could break tension with a single line. He wasn't trying to be cruel. But sometimes humor carried sharp edges. "Come on, Grandpa," Hayes said, still grinning. "If you're gonna walk around here looking official, you gotta at least tell us your rank." The others laughed. It wasn't meant to be disrespectful. It just came out that way, but the old man didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't fire back. He simply clasped his hands behind his back, eyes drifting across the room, taking in every face, every uniform, every patch. And then he looked straight at Hayes. "My rank," the old man repeated softly. "Well, I suppose it depends on what year you're asking." A few of the Marines stopped laughing. Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Sir." The old man slowly stepped forward, his voice calm but carrying a weight that silenced even the back row. "In 1969, he said, I was a young private fighting in the Achau Valley. By 71, I was a sergeant. By the end of 73, I was a first sergeant. And before I hung up my uniform for the last time," he paused. The tent was absolutely still. "I was a sergeant major of Marines." Every head lifted. Every smile vanished. The air felt heavier. A sergeant major. A rank held by fewer than 1%. A rank no one guessed because he wasn't wearing a single ribbon, badge, or symbol that told his story. The old man continued, "And since you asked, Corporal, I'm not lost. I came here because you're about to deploy to a region I know all too well. Your CO asked me to speak with you, but I prefer listening before talking." Hayes swallowed hard. "Sir, You're fine," the old man said, with a faint smile. "A Marine who can joke is a Marine who's still human. I only ask that you know who you're joking with." The tension loosened, but the respect did not. One by one, the Marines straightened their posture. Not because he demanded it, but because the room felt different now. The old man had carried more battles than any of them could imagine, and he carried them quietly. The Marines pulled up chairs and settled onto their bunks as the old man stood in the center of the tent. No one looked away. No one drifted off. He had the full, undivided attention of an entire unit, something even commanding officers struggled to get. He began with a story. Not about medals, not about heroism, not about victories, but about a mistake. He talked about a young Marine he served with, a kid barely 20. Brave, stubborn, always smiling. A kid who joked around just like Hayes. A kid who didn't take warnings seriously because life still felt invincible. One day, the old man said, voice tightening, we walked into an ambush. I told him to stay low, stay behind cover, wait for my signal. He paused, swallowing back memories heavier than sandbags. But he wanted to prove himself. Wanted to show everyone he wasn't afraid. He stood up too early. The tent fell into a chilling silence. He never made it back home. No one moved. Hayes stared at the ground, the joke he'd made earlier burning in his memory. The old man continued. That young man taught me something I never forgot. Pride is lethal, and sometimes humor hides fear. But respect is what keeps men alive. Respect for the mission. Respect for each other. Respect for those who came before you. He looked around the tent slowly, and respect for those still learning what it truly means to wear this uniform. Hayes finally spoke, quietly. Sergeant Major, I'm sorry. I didn't know. The old man placed a hand on his shoulder. None of us know everything when we're young. That's why we learn. That's why we listen. And that's why Marines stand together, no matter their age. A minute passed before anyone dared speak again. The old man's presence wasn't heavy with authority. It was heavy with experience, pain, and pride. Before leaving, he turned back to the Marines. You're stronger than you think, he said softly. But strength without humility becomes recklessness. Don't forget that. He stepped toward the exit, lifting the tent flap. Just before walking out, he added, and Corporal Hayes, if you ever want to know my rank again, you can just call me Marine. That's the only title that matters. The flap closed behind him, and for a long time, no one spoke. They didn't need to. The silence itself was the lesson.